The fault of modern man is not in his lack of awareness of time, but that he never steps out of it. So many people are wearing watches, there are clocks everywhere, our calendars are often full. We're always so obsessed and so busy with time. And this busyness is getting a little bit out of control. Everybody is so busy that we're quite literally burning out. And this is because we never truly step out of this mode of constant doing, of constant forward momentum. In many native traditions, the way they view our modern society as a very adolescent culture, and where we never really got out of puberty. We're always moving forward with forward momentum, new, more. And we really need to learn how to balance this. There's nothing wrong with forward momentum, but when we really look at the obsession with the clock, it's just really out of balance. I remember the story of when the first clock was placed in a German city. All of a sudden, the lunch break was 1 hour from 12 to 1. And if you really think about it, how insane is that? Imagine we have worked for thousands of years just by normal daylight hours. We meet when the sun is at its highest and we just have a lunch break. Some days it's a little bit shorter and some days it's a little bit longer. And all of a sudden, ding, and the lunch break is over. Like, how insane is that? Although the clock can be very useful in and of itself, it has become quite more of like a tyrant that is there to control us rather than alleviate us of stress. This all points to what we actually need more of, and that is deep time. Now, what is deep time? Before we even go into the concept of what deep time is, how are we actually viewing time? I think a beautiful example comes from ancient Greece, is where they view time entirely different from ours. The past was right in front of you. You can look at your past, you can literally see how far you've gone, you can talk to your ancestors. All these things are right in front of you. The past is crystal clear. We know when the Second World War happened, we know when there was times of peace, times of abundance, times of scarcity. It's all so clear. But the future comes from behind. It is something that plays out. Life is in that sense very much like a movie that's coming from behind. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? We always look towards the future like we can predict it from the past, but who knows what the future can actually bring? And especially because it comes from behind, it's like a wave. It's so uncertain, while the past is quite certain. Now we've flipped this. The past is behind us, it has already happened, and we're moving forward. We're moving forward into the future. We can predict the weather, we can predict the economy, control the clock time. It's just gotten a little bit out of hand, don't you think? This also poses a problem because the past now is behind us and not in front of us. We also cannot learn so much from our past mistakes anymore. We cannot learn from the wisdom of our ancestors, and this coming again back to our culture being quite adolescent, quite immature, because we don't really learn from the past, we try to escape it, and you cannot really escape the past. To make this all more practical, what we really see is that a lot of people are suffering from busyness. I would say that's just the root core suffering, and it has some consequences as too much stress, burning out, mental diseases, whatever. But what is actually the solution to this busyness? It's not more productivity tools, AI gadgets, better phones, faster cars. That is not really our problem. The real problem is that we're not really going anywhere. We're just busy ends, but being very uncontrolled, very unstructured, and we don't really have a clear purpose. And the funny thing is that even though we've gotten so busy and we've gotten so future oriented, so the time is in front of us instead of from behind, we have become increasingly short sighted. We are constantly occupied with pressing problems instead of long term solutions. And it is a strange thing that a culture who is so busy and so much planning that we just cannot look beyond the quarterly review for businesses, beyond the 4-year election schemes. It has gotten a little bit strange. I don't want to go too deep into this, but I think what is very clear is that the ecological world is suffering so much from our actions, and humans themselves are suffering so much from our own actions, and it's just gotten out of control. And this is very strange, because imagine if a politician would say to you, yeah, AI can be a phenomenal technology. Let's just wait 10 years. I'll have to do some research about it. I'm currently a little bit more occupied, and I have a hike coming up next week. That would be completely insane for a politician to say. Nobody would say, let's wait for something like this. We always have to race towards the end. And this constant racing is really making us short-sighted. Imagine if a politician would say, yeah, I think basic income might be a good idea. Let's just make that happen. We can easily do that in 100 years. We just have to revert some of our current structures, but we can definitely work towards that. Let's do it in the 22nd century. No one would say that on a political campaign or a business, like all of a sudden Apple would say, yeah, we're just gonna stop innovating for 10 years and we're just gonna take it a little bit easy. So the iPhone 15 is good, or the iPhone 20, whatever it is, and let's just take a break. Nobody does this. We're always just rushing, and we're so obsessed with short-term comfort. We just cannot stand this comfort, and you can see that in fast food, at-home delivery service, staircases, elevators, cars that need to go faster and faster, airplane travel, everything just constantly needs to go faster and faster. It is really interesting to ask of why are we doing this? Why are we behaving the way we are behaving? What is the deeper underlying incentive here, the deeper underlying motive? And what I think is just quite clear from all our actions, it's that it's not really in good relation. As I said, a very adolescent, very self-centered and self-focused, and we are not that well in relation anymore with our entire environment. And this is precisely where deep time comes in, because humans have lost their place in the web of life, like alligators, deers, trees. They all know their place, and we don't really know our place anymore, it seems. Like we've gotten quite off the track. And this is precisely where deep time comes in, because deep time gives a cure. Because when we truly relinquish the busyness and constantly let this deep time, this very present time that is eternal, because the universe is both eternal and linear, a more cyclical time, so to speak, if we let that unfold, we can return to our place in the web of life. And this is done always by slowing down. This is not a popular practice. It's just really hard to slow down in life. And that is also why I use these examples saying that we might wait 10 years for AI. What is 10 years with the history of the Earth of 4 billion years old? 10 years is nothing, but we just cannot even do that. There are 3 primary ways where we can really slow down. One is nature, second is ceremony, and third is ritual. And let's just first start in nature. It's really good to spend more time in nature, and especially when you live in a city, to continuously get out to nature whenever you really can, whenever you find time to go swimming, to go hiking, to go spend time in the seasons, to just sit in your garden. It doesn't really matter what's available to you, but to really prioritize spending time in nature, because the second you spend time in nature, the clock disappears, right? Time moves differently. Time is just such a very interesting concept. Just because you can measure it doesn't mean you understand it. Time can be so many things, and nature will alter our perception of time, and that is very beautiful. The second is ceremony. The native traditions, as far as I understand them, they really saw life as one big ceremony, and we want to live it well. And this is all just to say that ceremony really reminds us to behave well in the time that is given to us, to use that time wisely. And ceremonies can be big or small. These can be initiations into adulthood, marriage, seasonal markets like the equinoxes, And ceremonies are usually done at very specific times. They usually mark a transition, a change in time. And how beautiful is that, to change your time from being a boy to a man, from being single to being married? It's a change in time, and time will move very differently after that. And it's very beautiful and very necessary to mark these changes. And this is again also something we have lost with the clock, because we don't really have time to mark these changes. I think it's really good to become aware that all our ancestors have done a lot of ceremony, and we've lost this in the modern West. So it's really good to go back to these ancient ceremonies, because graduating from high school, graduating from college, starting your business, throwing a drunk wedding party, these are definitely transitions in and of itself, and these can be valuable for certain aspects of the culture, but they don't really quench our spiritual thirst. And if we don't quench our spiritual thirst, we get into a lot of trouble in our life, as you can see in our culture. So ceremony really helps us to tune in to deep time and mark these important transitions. And next up is ritual. And ritual are just really small ceremonies that remind us of the bigger ceremonies. And literally everything can be made into a ritual. But what I think is beautiful about rituals is that they can be done on a day-to-day basis. A ritual is really something you dedicate your time to, making your altar. That can be quite a ritual, just changing your altar a little bit every day, or having a certain tea ritual you do. They even call it tea ceremony. It's not necessarily about drinking the tea, but about the awareness and the presence of your action. And there are like countless examples of this, and you just really have to find something that works for you. Indigenous traditions were a lot more in tune with deep time and the cyclical nature of things, while the modern West is a lot more in tune with linear time and progress. What is a really beautiful and common agreed upon concept is the 7 generations, and that means that we stand in relation between the previous 3 and the next 3 generations after us. And some even say everything we do right now impacts the coming 7 generations after us. And we can also reverse it, that everything that is done before us by the past 7 generations is impacting that now. And it can be quite interesting when you think of your own life, the state of the world, like how much is really within our control. And that's something we don't really like to give up usually, but it's really good to become aware of it. And it is really beautiful to know that our ancestors are always with us, and that these spirits are always with us of our ancestors, and to do rituals to honor them. And these 7 generations in the future is about 140 years. So when you can really think of what should our policy around plastic be, what should our policy around AI be, what should our policy be on forestry, like how many trees should we cut? All these questions become a lot different when we just focus on economic growth, which means the shareholders now versus the coming 7 generations. This can just really teaches us to slow down and really get us to think more long term. It can be quite hard to really think of the 7 generations, but again, when we come closer to deep time and use these things like ceremony and ritual, what we've discussed before, things like this can become quite more apparent. And I always want to say inaction is action. You've got so many stories like this where people pray to a certain deity, pray to a certain spirit, and they ask, what should we do? And a lot of time the answer is wait. And they go 3 months again later. And again, what should we do? And wait. There is a lot of waiting in life, and waiting is quite an active act that maybe we have lost. And within this waiting, a lot of better solutions can appear, because when we don't rush, we can really take in more of a wider picture. So why is it that we have found ourselves in this place? Where are we actually going towards? And these things are not easy questions, and especially for our own individual lives, but to have this understanding and this awareness of the 7 generations. And that also just means a different awareness of time, because these future generations in linear time, they have yet to come. But when you become so deeply present in deep time. Both the past and the future become one, and everything becomes the present moment. And this is not something you necessarily have to read about, but it's just best to experience. And this comes back to that everything in this universe is vibration and everything revolves around a rhythm. Anyone knows in music, the pause is what gives us a rhythm, and deep time gives us this pause. And that is why it makes for a good rhythm, for better choices, and that helps us find our place in the universe. So I would recommend to just practice, maybe spend a few days, an hour, a minute in nature, just contemplating the entirety of this universe and on time, and see what happens to the rest of your day.